In our previous episode of Market Journal, we talked about cover crop termination with Nebraska Extension's Rodrigo Worley. This week, Dan Gillespie from the Natural Resources Conservation Service explains the practice of planting green. USDA numbers indicate in 2010, cover crops were used on less than 2% of cropland across the country. But more recent independent survey data on the state level from Iowa State Extension and the national level from the SARE organization indicate adoption has increased. Much of the footage you'll see in the following interview is from the 2016 growing season in Pennsylvania and Maryland, where the concentration of cover crops is much higher than it is here in the Midwest. We talked with Dan at Nebraska Extension's recent cover crop conference, started by asking for his background farming with cover crops in northeast Nebraska.
Started in 2004, as I said in my presentation, as a result of intense erosion events after 13 years of continuous no-till. The soybean residue wasn't holding up its end of the bargain, so I decided to augment that with cereal rye, and it definitely worked to curtail end of the erosion, but it was the biological part of it that was the pleasant surprise.
Explain more what you saw biologically in the soil.
Well, you see earthworms. You know, they're not the smallest of the creatures, but they're the most visible to us. And you know, just the first year that you park the tillage implement, you're out there planting, you're looking to see where your seed placement is, what your seed spacing is, and you find, you know, 2 earthworms before you find every kernel of corn. So there's a sign that it's really ramped up. Then recently, the soil biology, the whole world of soil health has you know, that's ramped up, and the information about the biology in the soil, the protozoa, the bacteria, the fungi, everything working together, you know, 5 billion bacteria in a teaspoon of soil. All that just, you know, I think farmers should be looking down at the ground underneath them and going, wow, what can I do?
Today you presented about planting green. When we say planting green, explain what that means.
Well, planting green means planting into a cover crop that isn't terminated yet. So, you know, a number of benefits from that. Number one, in a corn-soybean rotation that has limited biological time for us to take advantage of growing season, then you can overlap the growth of the cover crop with the cash crop to a point where you know, you're always aware of your soil moisture profile and what you can spend, or if you have irrigation, you know, what you can spend and replace later to maximize the benefits, to get growth for you know, IPM, IWM, integrated pest management, weed suppression, and then later on, as I pointed out, irrigation water use efficiency.
When are you terminating the cover crop then?
Well, again, that's a management decision. So, you know, if I have a full soil moisture profile and normal rainfall in the spring, you know, I don't have anything besides a young cover crop. There's no cash crop out there to utilize that moisture. So I'm going to plant and let them both grow until I see sufficient. Now, with the corn into this cereal rye, which is a very common cover crop in the state, in the eastern part of the state, you know, you want to terminate, I would say, maybe week, 10 days afterwards. You know, don't let the rye get too far ahead. With the soybeans, which is a legume planted into that grass crop, it's less of an issue. I know I did not terminate the cereal rye that was dormant planted last fall until May 19th of this year, but that was as much due to the amount of moisture we were receiving this spring and access to the field as anything else.
What are the crop insurance considerations that go along with planting green?
Okay, well, again, yeah, it's soil moisture management. Watch your profile, but right now, this area of Nebraska, the eastern part, is in Zone 3. And RMA, NRCS came up with a set of guidelines a few years back. And that is, the base guideline is to terminate the cover crop at planting or before emergence of the crop. And then you go down into some of the additional considerations, and it says if a no-till system is being used, you can delay it by 7 days. And then up to number 1, if it's dry, terminate earlier. If it's wet, terminate later. Well, this spring in Nebraska, eastern Nebraska, we had that if it's wet, terminate later, whether by decision or just not being able to get into the field. And then another consideration is there's a new technology rule also that I read and understand to say that if you are utilizing this new technology and you can show your crop insurance agent that you have 3 years that show that this new technology has not hampered your yields or maybe enhanced them, then you can get an accepted, recognized individual, maybe from Extension and another group, to sign off on that and be insured. But again, it always comes back down to management. Management always pays the best dividends, and I think this, this opportunity to plant green and grow cash crops and cover crops at the same time for a period of time may get us to the point where the cover crops become that much more valuable in our system.